Hello, are you new to Sashiko and trying to find the right thread? On Mariko Sashiko today, I'll tell you 5 things to know to get you started. So I use Sashiko thread. In my videos, the stitching is done with Sashiko thread, but it can be confusing, especially because all the labels are in Japanese when you're first looking for it. So, number 1, first problem is where to buy it. It's pretty easily available now, which wasn't always true. The best places are on the internet. There are the big sites like Etsy and Amazon, but there's also lots of specialty stores opening up now that sell Sashiko thread. Some in the US that I use are Shibori Dragon and Depsos. There are others, you know, if you do an internet search and just type in Sashiko thread, you should be able to find some more in your area. Also, one local store in my area has started to sell Sashiko thread. You know, it's increasingly popular, so I think that you're going to be able to find it more easily in places close to you these days. Secondly, what thickness of thread do you buy? So Sashiko comes in thin, thick, and regular or medium. So I've got some examples here of those. Regular is this one. You probably can't actually see the thicknesses on the camera, but it's the most commonly one used. It's what I almost always use. I always like the look of it. Seems like it comes out okay. If you were doing something where you wanted a thinner thread, you could actually buy the thin. I actually got this in a kit. I don't usually buy thin. And I did use it. I thought, well, I'll try it and see what it looks like, and it was fine, so I used it. But if you get it in a kit and you don't like it, you can always just buy some different thread and do it with that. And then the last one is thick. So the thick Sashiko thread, it's really for Kogan, which is a different kind of Sashiko. Sometimes you see it named Kogan Sashi. And I do actually have another video if you're interested in how to do that. It's quite different from the other forms. And I've got a video that will show you what you need and how to do it. So with this thread, it's 6 separate strands. It's very clear that it's 6 strands. And it's just a much thicker look. So those are the 3 widths for you to choose from to buy it in 3 thicknesses. So how much should you buy? So, you know, that's a good question because it really depends on your project. So I would say if you're just beginning Sashiko, obviously you're probably going to start making just a small sample of something. So just buy one of the small skeins and see how you like it. You know, go ahead and try it. And that also will give you an idea for in the future of how much thread you're going to need for whatever you want to buy. On the bigger projects, when you buy a larger size, you can actually buy a larger size of thread as well. I like this. You don't ever want to run out of thread in the middle of your project. For one thing, you know, it's not always so easy to match up the right colour. Although, let me just show you one thing. On some of these threads, although it's all in Japanese, there will be a number, and that's the colour number. So, you know, if you do run out, at least you can look for that number on the thread from wherever you bought it and probably get the same one. But of course, it's best not to run out. So how do you use Sashiko thread? Generally speaking, you use a single strand. If you feel like the single strand is too thick, if what you're doing is a delicate or intricate project, don't split this. That really weakens it. Just go ahead and buy the thinner. And even though I would say usually you don't double it, again, if you sew something it doesn't seem like it's standing out enough and you want something more prominent, then go ahead and double it and see if that works better for you. But standard, I would say, is single thread. I have over the years watched a few Japanese videos of people doing it there, and they seem to almost always be using a single thread. The only exception to that is the Sashiko thread. excuse me, the Kogan Sashiko thread. And these, as I say, they do split. You do actually, you'll cut a section off. You still use the whole 6 strands. You'll cut a section off, and then you'll divide that and separate out each single strand. When you've separated them all out, then you put them back together, and the result is you get a thicker and fluffier stitch when you're sewing with it. So all the rest you don't split. So if you've bought some thread and you're not sure what it is, if it splits into strands like that, it's pretty thick, then you've probably got the Kogan thread, and it's really not for the other Sashiko, but everybody does what they like, so that's fine. Sometimes this comes in on these little rolls. It's actually a bit easier to manage than this. And also, sometimes you can get little cards with it on. I don't have any of those. I don't tend to use that, not for any specific reasons, just the way it's worked out. All the threads are pretty good, whichever ones I've tried. I usually use the skeins more than anything. So to actually use these, what you would do is take one of the skeins, open it fairly carefully around the label. This one's got a little bit of tape holding it. So, there we go. Now, when you've got the label off, if you look in the threads here, so you can't really just pull these out like you would embroidery silk. They would, because of the texture, they wouldn't pull out very easily. They tend to get more tangled up. So you're looking for this kind of knotted piece that's holding the loop in its strands. And if you pull that all away, it drops out into a loop. And then at that point, cut it clean in half, and then that's the right length now for stitching. So to stop it from going all over the place, I usually put the label just back around it, just to help keep it together. And another thing is, if the worst thing happens, you do run out of thread, then you can look on your label and see what you need to get. So, well, you know, why should you use Sashiko thread, really, when there are other choices? So, firstly, I do think that you should try Sashiko thread. It is, you know, the authentic one to try. It's a little different to other threads. You know, it's coarser, it's got a dull finish, and it has that special quality that when you do your stitching and you do your tension control, so that's that little tug or the stroke over the stitches, it makes the stitch just plump up a little bit, and it looks really nice. Sashiko thread does come in lots of colours. There's the variegated colours now. There's also a lame, and just as an aside, the lame does also look like it splits into separate threads because of that shiny thread that's down it, but it still is not meant to be split. It's still meant to be used just as a single thread. I know some people think it's a little bit more expensive than other kinds of thread. I don't think the price is too bad, and I think that when I use it, I get so many hours of pleasure out of sewing with it that it's worth the price. But I do watch out for sales, and if I can, I buy it when it's on sale. And some colours I buy a lot of. I like the blue background and the white stitching, so you know, if it's on sale, I'll always buy a lot of white because I know I'm going to use it, and so that's good value for me. Okay, so after you've tried Sashiko thread, you might decide to move on to some other kind of threads, and there are some alternatives that you can use. Some people like that, and you know, there's lots of reason for doing that. You might want a specific color you can't get, or you know, the price really might be difficult, or maybe your availability might be a problem. And then there's a big thing with upcycling, you know, which is great, where people want to use up their old threads that they've already got. And so, you know, if you do that, there's nothing wrong with any of these things. I choose to use Sashiko thread, but you know, you could use whatever you enjoy doing, because I think the thing is that we're all just trying to make something that we like, you know, that's pleasing to our eye. And you know, that's the main thing, is the enjoyment of it. So whatever you decide to sew with, enjoy your sewing, make something great. And thanks for watching Mariko Sashiko.